There is no good reason for Border Patrol, for the customs, for any law enforcement to talk to someone who's coming into our country and ask them if they've recently had an abortion. But they are doing that, and they think it's perfectly fine. Here we're talking about an Australian tourist who was deported from the US after being asked whether she had recently had an abortion. She'd been told by the Customs and Border Protection that agents acted properly in those interactions with her. You can see a picture here of her and her cat. I don't know if the cat was deported too. But she's an Australian citizen where abortion is legal, passing through LAX in a state where abortion is legal, on her way to Canada where abortion is legal. And yet we are certainly acting like a certain Hulu show here. She was detained by the CBP, asked whether she was pregnant, she wasn't, and whether she'd recently had an abortion. Now notice, this was earlier this year. Just days earlier, Roe v. Wade had been overturned. Now, did this influence the Border Patrol? I don't know, maybe they would have done this anyway. But in a recent interview, spokesperson for CBP denied that Gourley had ever been questioned about an abortion specifically. However, a special agent who called Gourley this week with a follow-up told her it was a policy to ask about termination of pregnancy. So I don't know what game they think they're playing, that if they don't say the word abortion, then we're fine. We didn't break any laws. You asked her if she had terminated a pregnancy recently. And look, we can go into the specific ways that this is not only unethical, obviously, but directly goes against the guidelines that have been stated about what sort of questions should be asked at the border by Customs and Border Patrol. We might get to that, but Ben, what do you think about this?
I mean, not only is it unethical, super creepy, right? What is the reasoning here? We're just keeping statistics. Are you crossing the border for 1 or 1.5? We're just checking here. What is the thought? I don't understand. It's a very strange line of questioning.
Yeah, 100%. And look, we don't have a ton of time, but I'm just gonna say, on the CBP's website, you can find information about what sort of questions they're supposed to ask. Now, their argument would be, we might need to know if someone might be at an elevated risk of some sort of health problem in the near future. To which I would say, mind your business, honestly. When it comes to something like the loss of a pregnancy, no, because clearly you're not asking about all risk factors. You've decided that this is one that's the business of every random Border Patrol agent. But even if you bought that they have a good reason to do that, on their guidelines, it says to ask about pregnancy losses such as stillbirths and miscarriages. There are no references to termination of pregnancies. So even if we accept their rationale, they're not abiding by it. They are going beyond, making it far more specific about a topic that had obviously just at that point recently been very much in the news.
John, just before you move on to the next story, you are currently hosting a news program. So have you had any abortions recently?
Jesus, briefly, it enrages me that you would ask that. But I do know that on your website as a comedian, it does say that you will ask questions like that. And so I guess I just have to allow it.
I just need to know, there's certain things I need to know, John.
Exactly. On that website, you can find out which questions Ben might ask you, as well as details about the Mad King. So definitely head over there.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to end with one nice little note. India's Supreme Court just recently allowed all women, regardless of marital status, to have abortions up to 24 weeks into pregnancies. That is good news for India, and it's an inspiration to backwards countries like the United States that maybe someday we can treat our people with empathy and compassion too. Not now, probably not in the near future, but maybe decades into the future, our kids or grandkids will be treated with some basic level of human dignity. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.